If you have started your passage in life, and sometimes it doesn't go as easy as you would like, and sometimes we're hit by trauma and things that can cripple us at times. But the secret is of getting up and getting through it. And sometimes that time isn't just doing it on your own. We all need a little bit of help. So today, that's what we'll be talking about. Welcome to Let's Get Real. My name is Glenda Kroll, and I'll be one of your hosts today. And
Hello, everybody. I'm Nicole Harvick. I always show up on Hump Day in hopes of making your midweek much better. And I think you will be so much better when you meet this guest that we have today. She's really amazing. And to start with, she's an Amazon best-selling author, which that's amazing in itself. But she is also a Reiki master. She is an intuitive healer. She's a podcast host, along with being a speaker, a trainer, and a coach. So let's welcome Jennifer Rogers to our stage. Hi, Jennifer.
hi,
Hey,
Jennifer.
That's a really impressive resume, my friend. I'm just sitting there and I'm like, we're very blessed to have you today. And when I read your bio, I know it didn't all start with fun and games and roses and candy. So can you kind of go back to the beginning and give us an idea of the trauma and or abuse that happened to bring you to this point in life?
absolutely. So, my trauma story first, before I get into it, let me say thank you for sharing this platform with me and allowing me to come on and share my story. I just really appreciate your openness and your willingness to allow me to speak to those who maybe haven't found the courage yet to speak.
Oh, and that's so important, Jennifer. Speak away. That is so important.
Yeah.
We're thrilled to
Yeah.
have you here and to be blessed how we can help others. So please share.
Thank you. So my story started back just as a small child. I'll go back to age 5.
Ooh.
I, at 5 years old, was sexually assaulted, and that continued till the age of 8. And, there's things in life that you'll never forget. And the one thing that I did forget in that circumstance was when it actually started. I can't remember the exact time because it happened so many times. There were so many sleepless nights. There was so many ways of how do I get it out of this? How do I stop this? Why isn't someone else stopping this? Who should be protecting me? Who's not protecting me? But the one thing I did know in that, even as young as 5, was this isn't normal. That families don't do this. At least to my knowledge, families didn't do that. It didn't feel right. You don't do things to people in the dark and then tell them not to tell, right? There was just something that always stuck out to me about that. And when I was 8 years old, I had gone from sleeping comfortably in my bed and being this, carefree, bouncing little girl who I'm sure you ladies remember Strawberry Shortcake. Oh my gosh, I was the biggest Strawberry Shortcake fan. And, enjoying that time with her and having her little bicycle to needing to hide under the covers at night just to get some sleep, to going down the hallway and getting my younger brother, who, when I'm 5, he's 2, getting him to sleep in bed with me to act as a protector.
Wow.
So that's not working. Now I'm lining toys up outside the bedroom door all the way to the edge of my bed so that when my abuser comes in, I'll hear him trip over the toys and that will wake me up. Because I still to this day don't like to be startled out of sleep. I will even set my alarm to something soothing and easy wake up mode. Just that jolt, it's something that still stays in you, right? And so I would line these toys up and that's how I would wake up.
But how does a little girl at 5 years old, even the fact at 5 years old, because you don't think of this, you don't expect something like this to be happening. And I'm presuming before that time, your life was normal. You never, or you never had this happen in your life, or did you feel things begin
Well,
before?
normal is a subjective word.
Right, right.
It is so subjective. And, what I would consider normal, somebody else may not.
True.
Was that the first time I felt something that was different about me? No. The first time that I felt something different about me was age 3. And my mother was so young when she had me, barely 16, 3 weeks of turning
Oh,
16,
gosh.
she had me. And then I was born 6 weeks early, coming into this world at 3 pounds, 5 ounces, but also coming into the world and immediately going into death. And so my mother, because it was an emergency cesarean, the first sound she hears of her daughter is not of a cry of life and welcoming. It's the extraction. It's the beeps and the pulses to bring this daughter to life. And
Wow.
so I write about that in comparison to Mount St. Helens because I'm born in August of 1980. In May of 1980, Mount St. Helens erupted. And so that's how I say I came into this world, was with an eruption. And I have a special connection to the Phoenix. And so I was truly born out of those ashes during that time. And so life from the get-go wasn't going to be easy if we look at it by definition.
Yeah.
And we know that, if you're involved in that spiritual journey, you choose your path. So this is the path I knew I was going to take. And it was going to be different from me. And it was different from day one. And so
having a mother who's a child herself.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. How could she? I mean, I've said before, at 16, you can't do algebra or balance a checkbook. You can't vote. But here, raise a child. Here you go. Do the best you can. And so she tries. She tries. And she does, what she thinks is right. And I think we all do that as mothers because we're not given, and fathers too, let's be fair. No father, no mother is given a book of life and said, this is how you hold your child. This is how you nurture them. This is what you do when they're crying. That doesn't happen. And now they have those fun little baby think it overs that you get to take home and pretend. That is not even close.
No,
you can let that thing cry in the corner.
And each child is different too. Not each child can you pinpoint, okay, this is what I do, because they're different from day to day. So at 16, being a baby yourself and trying to pinpoint what's right or correct for this little tiny person that was placed in my arms, that's really hard.
And you gave her credit, Nicole. You said placed in her arms. I never was. They immediately took me from delivery to a children's hospital. So then you add that trauma onto her, where she has now had the cesarean and can't get up and move. She doesn't get to accompany me. So she has to go through her discharge process to even be with me.
Wow.
And so I can't imagine, I had 2 healthy pregnancies. I can't imagine what that would have been like for her. And at 16, trying to process that information. And it's unimaginable.
It's a horrible way to be starting and to bring, both sides, to bring, starting a new life, that child is being taken and rushed because of this is a child of 3 pounds, you said.
Yeah.
It's, abnormally so small and so gentle, this child itself can't survive on its own. And then on top of it, a child bringing in that child, and I'm sure scared as it is for them as well. So what a way of starting a life and beginning to move forward of how you're being brought in. Okay, so we've gotten to that point where you were, and how did she manage to make it through the beginning part of life? Did she have support from family when she was starting out on her journey?
So she was married to my father at that young age. They were young. Now he, 3 years older than her. So he was a kid himself. But they did have support from both sets of parents. Both my maternal and paternal grandparents were there to assist them. And so they had those securities, and then they worked jobs that a 16, 17, 18-year-old kid can work, right?
Yeah.
You're not working in an office setting. My mom, and I'm sure you're like me, you're not just handed one trauma. She wasn't handed one trauma with me, because anything I went through as a mother, she goes through it.
Absolutely.
And she goes through it in the privacy, in the darkest places of her heart, and sometimes alone, if we're being completely honest.
True.
Because how can you share some of the things that you're going with when you know others are going to judge you?
Yeah.
They're going to look at you under a microscope that they have no authority to judge you under, but they do it.
Exactly.
And so she goes on, and she has my brother 3 years later. And so now at this point, she's 19, has my brother, and you're still a baby with 2 babies. You're still trying to make it. And that marriage doesn't last. Any marriage is hard, but at 16 to 19 years old, that's not who you are. I hear people say, would you ever go back to high school? And I'm like, hell no.
No, never.
No, I didn't know who I was in high school. I'm not going back to that chick. Well, you wouldn't make any changes? No, because if I made one single change, I wouldn't be where I am today. But
True.
I'm not going back. I love my friends from high school. I love the experiences, but it's not for me. So she goes on. My brother, they divorced when my brother's just an infant. And we spend equal time at this time between both parents, between my mom and her parents' house and my dad and his parents' house. And you asked me, was that the first time that you noticed something was not right or something was different? And I'll tell you, at age 3 was the first time I noticed that I was different, or I felt different. And it rose out of trauma. And really where I resonated with that spirit of the Phoenix again was a weekend or a time frame with my father and my grandparents. Their house caught on fire, and my brother and I were there during the fire.
Wow.
And so my dad, yes. And that's why I say that Phoenix really rose. And my dad and grandfather get me and my brother out of the home. Try to get my grandmother. I have a great grandmother in the home. My grandmother does make it out, but she suffers burns, that scars that she wore the rest of her life. But my great grandmother, they were not able to save, and she actually passes. And so during that time, when my dad got my brother and I out, and it feels like this happened yesterday when you talk about it. I remember him putting us in the back seat of a car. And so there's my brother, and here I am, this little 3-year-old, and I'm looking out, and you can see the orange and the reds just bursting in the windows of the home, popping out, and just that hot of the fire. And it was in that moment that I saw, which I define today as angels, for the very first time. And there was 2 angels that I saw ascend or descend and then ascend with my great grandmother. And I thought, did I just see that? Absolutely. I just saw that. Absolutely. And I remember sharing that story over and over and over as I was a little girl. And I thought, there's something special happening here, even though in a moment of complete outrage, there's something special happening. And I can only say that had it not been for my dad, we probably wouldn't be here today without his courage to step in and get us out. And so we go through that. And so when I reach age 5 and I start going through these things, immediately there's something internally going, yeah, no, because this is a stepfather, right? This is not my biological father. And I know my dad wouldn't do this. I know my grandfathers wouldn't do this. What is happening? But you have all those scary voices in your head. You have all those threats. And the one thing I could remember was that gruffy, scratchy facial hair and the smell of cigarettes on his breath. And that always kept me from wanting to say anything. Yeah. And so I, as a little girl, what do? You shut down. You don't say anything. And what I did was I lived through the day, get up every day, pick up those toys that we learned to line up,
Wow.
make my bed. So my bedroom, and even today I'm a very OCD, spotless type person, but my room as a little girl was absolutely clean. But if you went in my closet was a mess. And it was in that closet that I could shut the door, be in the complete silence, the complete darkness, and just escape. Because that's the only place I had. There's homework all over the place, there's little shoes all over the place, but it was someplace that I felt safe. And nobody questions if your closet's dirty, right? It's just your mom in to see if your room's clean.
Wow.
And this goes on. It goes on. For 3 years, it goes on. And finally, I get an infection, and an 8-year-old body can't battle that type of infection. And I remember deciding today's the day. I have to tell, because I cannot pretend anymore. I need help. And so I come down the stairs, and I can tell you today what I was wearing. I had on a pair of turquoise pants and a little sweater, cream sweater with some zigzags on it. And coming down the stairs and going to my mom and just laying upon her what I've been through.
And she had no idea this whole time, like when he left the room. I mean, they probably slept together and he would have to get up and come to your room. Did she not have any idea when you told her?
Nicole, you have the same questions that I had as I was processing my healing, because what I noticed was when I started bringing my little brother to my bedroom to sleep with me, the stepfather, applied a hook and latch lock type walking mechanism to the outside of their door. So same thoughts. I thought, okay, she's going to wake up. He's not going to be in the bed with her. She's going to get up. She's not going to be able to get out the door because it's locked from the outside. But that never happened.
And she didn't see the latch, though, when she was during the day hours?
But that's easy to explain away, right? You have a little 5-year-old to 2-year-old. We can keep them out of the bedroom.
Mm.
So things are easily explained away.
And sometimes people don't question. It's like they might know, but they don't want to know the whole truth.
If you're living with someone and that person is your financial support system,
True.
that person is your emotional support system, that is your love system.
Yeah.
How much are you willing to give up?
Exactly.
How much are you willing to look in that mirror and say, is this happening? And if your daughter's not saying anything.
Yeah. Right. And if you're scared of your own life, how do you exist? And you sort of feel like you need to have that.
Right. Because we can say, and I apologize. I don't know why the screen keeps going dark, but we can say, okay, well, she's been a mom. Right. So even at the earliest, at 5 years old, she's 21.
Yeah.
Are we at our smartest and brightest levels at age 21?
No.
Not even close.
Not close. And so go 3 years forward. How about 24? Science tells us the brain is still forming during these
25,
years.
Right. Absolutely. Now, was your little brother involved in any of this at all, or was this just directed at you?
Just me.
So you were just alone.
Mm-hmm. That's what I thought. That's exactly what I thought. And you carry that. And what made me even more alone was when I came down the stairs that day to tell her we had no phone. We had one car, and he had the car at work. And so I felt comfortable now coming down the stairs to tell. And so I tell her, we go to a neighbor's, we use the neighbor's phone. The police come, they collect me, my brother, my mom, and we go straight to the hospital. And I can tell you today, if you've ever had a sexual assault exam done on you,
Mm-mm.
it's not comforting.
No, it's not
It-
those gentlest things.
And you were 8.
I was 8.
So, but
And
your mother did you did respond right off the bat. She believed you right off.
oh,
Right from the beginning.
100%.
So you
100%.
wonder that maybe she
You
kind of
knew.
then, and
You
maybe
had an idea.
you brought it
I
out, you made it real because, just think of it. If your little one came to you and you didn't know, you really didn't know, wouldn't you wonder, like, if it could be an imagination? Are you making something up? Well, I'm just, being real, right?
Right. And I
So,
didn't have those thoughts because there was no way, like you say, at 5 to 8, I should have known any of these things.
yeah, no,
So
absolutely.
it's not like we had the internet and smartphones and I was seeing things I shouldn't be seeing at that young age, right? So you're correct. And so I can tell you today, as clear as I can see what I had on, I can feel those scissors gliding up my little legs and the coldness of that steel cutting my clothes from my body. But what happens after that exam and after the testimony or the statements are given to the police department, you would think that the state of Oklahoma comes in and says, okay, let's create a plan of action. Well, they
Yeah.
do, but their plan of action is they take us right back in the car and put us right back in the home.
Oh,
We're
how?
delivered right back to it. You have to think this is 1988 going into 89. The state of Oklahoma sex offender registry doesn't start until 89 after my case.
Wow.
So my offender never has to register, ever,
Wow. And
for my case.
did he come back into the house at that point to be?
Oh, sister, hang on to your seat.
Okay.
What about we're both, Glenda, we're just like, oh my God, I can't
No,
believe
like,
this.
This
Yeah.
is breaking my heart.
I know, it's horrifying.
So we go, and the home we lived in was beautiful. It was picturesque storybook, beautiful 2-story home. Top of the stairs was my brother's bedroom. Down the hall, middle was my mother and stepfather's, and at the end was mine. I mean, we had a beautiful home. It looks that way, right? So we moved from that home to a smaller home, to a 2-bedroom home with what's called a Jack and Jill bathroom with bathroom in between bedrooms.
Right.
And my brother and I go to sharing a room. You have to remember, my mom is fully reliant on this gentleman. So if she's making a plan, I don't know it. I'm 8 years old. I don't know what she's doing. I just know that we went from one house to another house, but abuse doesn't stop. It changes. And it changes in the fact of, okay, well, now you don't have this bedroom anymore, but you have a bathroom. And now we're telling me how to wash my body, how to take care of my body, and different things. And so that's the reality I'm in at that point. So I'm 2nd grade, 8 years old, 2nd grade. Do you ladies remember being 8 or in the 2nd grade?
I do. You're babies.
You're babies. You're tiny.
Yeah.
And what are you learning? You might be learning some simple structured addition, maybe a tap into multiplication, right? We don't know much. But I come home one day and I remember having my backpack on me, and where we moved was about a block and a half from the school. And I come walking down the alley, and when I look to the left, there's my house. And when I see my house, the car is gone. So you asked me, Glenda, how do you know? How do you feel? This was the first time I actually heard something. I saw something when I was 3, right? When I saw my grandmother leaving. This is the first time I heard something. And you can call it spirit, you can call it intuition, you can, whatever you want to call. But I heard, don't go home. He's there.
Wow.
I don't know how,
Yeah.
It was me knowing that. And so instead of turning left and going on home, I turned right and ran away.
Wow.
And at 8 years old, I went 1.5 miles, which is pretty late. Even for me now at 44, 1.5 miles is a pretty good walk. But 8 years old. And I went to my mom's friend's house and I knocked on the door and I told her what had happened. And she said, come in. And I remember when I got there, she was in her kitchen. She was out on her dining room floor, and she's propagating plants. So she has these little styrofoam cups, and she's redoing those. And she just says, here, work with me. And she never asked me a question. She never questions my story, nothing. She said, I'm going to call your grandma for you. And she does. And so we're there for a while, and there comes a knock on the door. And she swoops me up and my backpack up and takes me to her closet and puts me in her closet. And she says, I don't want you to say anything. Be quiet. I said, okay. So she goes and she answers the door, and it's my mom. And my mom's crying, and I can hear her saying, I don't know where Jennifer is. She went to school today, but she didn't come home. We can't find her. So there I'm stuck in that closet going, what do I do?
Yeah.
Do I get out? Because now I can hear my mom crying. Where do I go in this?
Right.
And her friend stops her and she says, I have your daughter and you can't have her back.
Wow.
And I just remember feeling the weight of like, oh my gosh, somebody listened, somebody heard, somebody paid attention.
Yeah.
So did you ever tell your mother about the showers and that kind of grooming?
No, we just got frozen.
You know,
Sorry, go ahead. You froze from us for a moment.
I'm sorry. It's the question of if it was happening at our previous home, how do you not know it's happening here?
Exactly.
But so she didn't even question you at that point in time?
No. So when my grandmother came to get me at that time, we go live with her. My mom ends up leaving, divorcing this man. And like most women who are dependent on a man, because that's where she was at that stage in her life, when we move in with her again, it's right into the arms of another stepdad. We're right there. And so I moved back in at 9. I'm gone out of her care for about 13 months, from 88 to 89, and go back into her care. So at 9 years old, we're good. About 11, I start experiencing some of the same things with the second stepfather.
Wow.
And I thought, nope, not doing this again. But it wasn't just with me. It was towards a cousin as well, as far as what he's doing in front of her. He's so brazen. He's doing these things in front of her. And I thought, nope, I've already been through this. I'm not doing this again. And so what do? Wasn't my brightest moment, but again, I'm 11. I'm not operating on full functional brain cells here. I write her a letter and tell her what's going on. And I put it under her pillow on her birthday.
Wow.
And she confronts him, and he clearly, no, that never happened. I never would do that. I told you I would protect. All the shit spilling out of his mouth that he can say. So I'm like, I'm done. I am done. Get me out of here. And I want, at this point, nothing more than to live with my biological dad. I just want to go be with him. And so my mom says, well, when you're 14, you can live with your dad. That's where she went. You can live with your dad. So in August of 1994, I will turn 14. April 22nd of 1994, my father is killed in an auto pedestrian accident. I'm 4 months away from getting out of that home.
So, but during that time, you had a relationship with your grandmother. Mm-hmm. Did your grandmother not check in with you, knowing what you had been through, now knowing there's a second man in the house? Did you not confide in her?
So this is where it gets really impactful for my story. One thing I did not share with you ladies in my bio, because I think it's important to share in person, is I'm a 4th generation sexual abuse child.
4 generations?
4 generations. So when I learned that, it makes sense that my mother didn't stand up for me, because she was assaulted by her grandfather. My grandmother, who took me in, was assaulted by her own father, which was the same grandfather that did this to my mother. Great grandmother is abused. So when you have generation upon generation of women who are abused and nobody standing up for them, it's not too far-fetched to believe, how could we stand up for you?
Right.
So my abuser didn't come from within my biological family. He came from an outside influence. And so that stopped. And so there was something, what did I know? What did I feel? I knew at 5 to 8 years old, this is not normal. Families don't do this. Little did I know that my family had been through that.
Yeah.
But there was something different in me that I was like, this is stopping here. And we're not going to continue this. And so that was my drive as a mother. This is not going to happen to my son, to my daughter, won't happen to my granddaughters or my grandsons now. It
Yeah.
truly is, I'm that stopper. I'm not a victim.
Yeah.
I'm not a survivor. I'm a trauma breaker. I
Right.
broke that cycle, because what happens to women when they suffer the type of traumas that I've had, they're not always in the best categories, right? Because what happens, the states automatically put them, oh, well, you're a child of teenage pregnancy. Oh, you're a child of poverty, because we didn't come from money. We don't have money. Okay. Oh, you're a child of sexual abuse. Oh, not once, but twice. Here you go. Oh, let's sprinkle in your father's tragic death. Good luck to you. And so
how did you handle then your father now dying, now knowing that
You're there.
now there's nowhere to go?
So sometimes getting in trouble is your best friend. And I'm not advocating that to get anybody out, but in true transparency, the next summer, the summer of 1995, I went to spend the summer with my grandparents, my mother's parents, the ones that I've been close to. My cousin and I decide that we're going to steal a $4 pair of boxer shorts from Walmart. They were so cute, had Dalmatians on them. So stupid. We had
You were
$4.
a kid. You were a kid, though.
Right. Right. So what happens is we get scared. We actually don't steal the boxers. We take and we put them back. So she put them in the bag. We get scared. I take them out of the bag and we put them on a shelf in the grocery section. Well, security stops us. Actually, they follow us all the way out to the car, which we learned later they're not supposed to do that, but they did. Follow us all the way out to the car, bring us back in, call the police on us. So she gets, they have us in the back room. And they're telling us they got us on video stealing these shorts. And I said, actually, no, you don't. And he said, actually, yes, we do. And it's you on the video stealing the shorts. And I said, haha, wrong. Because, I'm like, you're not talking to me like that. And so popping me at 15 is like, show me the video because I'm going to show you you're wrong. What you'll see on the video is that we actually put the shorts back and went and do it. It was the intent is what ultimately got us in trouble. It was the intent. And she's charged with she's charged with petty theft or petty larceny. I'm charged with aiding and abetting, even though I put the shorts
at that age.
Whatever. So she's 18, so she goes to jail. And so I'm, taken down, whatever. They released me to my grandparents, but they put me in a program called Youthful Offenders. And now I'm grounded the rest of the summer. My grandma, I'm 30-day ground, no phone, no swim pool, no fun whatsoever. And in youthful offender, you have to go to counseling. You go to group counseling, individual counseling, family counseling. Well, in our individual and family counseling, this is where it comes out that my mother is still with my second stepfather. And these are the things that I've been going through since 11. And not only is he sexually abusive, he is physically abusive, and that does bleed over to my brother. Mm-hmm. And so that counselor is the one who stepped in and said, absolutely not. You cannot return to that home. You will not return to that home. And so that was my blessing in disguise of getting in trouble that year. That $4 pair of Dalmatian boxers saved me from who knows what. And so after that, we never went back to our mother. Our grandparents actually adopted us. My grandfather was Air Force. And so while we didn't receive any type of military style benefits, we did get an education benefit if we chose to further our education. And I thought, that's it. That's how I get out of here. Because again, we were very poor. If you've ever seen the show Hoarders, That's how my grandparents lived. They were the most amazing people, but literal trails in our house. And so to have friends over, I wasn't willing to do that. Didn't want to, I always wanted to go stay with my girlfriends in high school, right? But that's how we grew up. And so I thought, this is my way out. And so in high school, I went to Vo-Tech because that was free education. I could go my junior and senior year. And then as soon as I got out of college, or as soon as I got out of high school, right into college. And what do? I choose criminal justice. And why? Why did the system work the way it worked? What happened? Where's the failure? And you can't pinpoint one failure. It's a full functioning system, right? There's so many things. And so I go on, get my degree in criminal justice, work a little bit, not directly in law enforcement, but work at the jail, and go in to work with a tribal government and do process serving and investigation for them. And then that leads me over to a different area where I met one of my best friends today, and who I work for in my 9-to-5 job, right? Or 8-to-5 job. But in doing that, I had to do some deep internal looking.
Yeah.
Because there was a little girl in there that needed somebody to speak up for her. There was a little girl in there that needed some healing, because it's great that we got out, and it's great that we got education, and it's great that, I am doing the things I'm doing today, but there's more work.
You're still living inside of you, of course.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
there's other little girls. There's other women with this same little girl. There's men who've been through the same thing. And I don't know. I just have a pull so much to work in the prison systems, in this type of thing, not to be, a correctional officer or case manager, but to really just share this story and connect, because people are abused and they lock it away. They drowned it out, whether it is through addiction, whether it's through being oblivious. That didn't happen. But then something out of the blue comes up and can knock you on your feet. Sure. And so I had a calling a couple of years ago. My mother-in-law reached out to me and she was like, "Hey, my friend's going to teach Reiki. Would you like to go?" And I thought, oh my gosh, I've always wondered about this. What is this? Absolutely, I want to go. And from the moment I had my first attunement, I was like, okay, this is what's missing. This I felt on a cellular level. This is what I needed in my life. And it was something I picked up immediately. So I'm like, okay, level 1, level 2, what are we doing here? Let's do all the healing, let's go. And so I recently moved, or about a year ago, moved communities. I stayed in my same home little town until my youngest daughter graduated high school. And then we sold and moved to what we say is our forever home now. And I met with some like-minded people and have the best, we call ourselves the Reiki group, or our Reiki friends group. And that's where we really begin to heal. And so when I'm going in, I'm getting questioned about, where did you learn that? Who taught you that? And I'm like, I don't know. This is what I feel. This is what I've known for a long time. And it's connecting back to those visions and those voices that you heard as a little girl that were looking out to protect you. That voice that told you to turn right that day instead of going left to go home. And then I became part of a group where I met Nicole. And Nicole's talking about this Ho'oponopono training. And I thought, what is that? And she'd always say, I'm the forgiveness expert. And I'm like, dude, do I got some forgiveness I need to deal with and dish out, right? And so through Nicole's, talking about Ho'oponopono, I was like, I'm going to research this out. And so then I went in and studied Ho'oponopono, and it was amazing. But then, when you buy one thing, they're like, oh, if you buy this in the next 10 minutes, you get it. And I'm like, yeah, do it. Click. And then it's like, ta-da, you've charged $500 to your credit card. Not really that much. But what got me was something called sacred freedom technique. And I thought, okay, what is this? Because I've always been intrigued with tapping.
Oh, I love tapping.
you can watch videos, you can watch how it works in an instant for people.
Mm-hmm.
And so what Sacred Freedom does is it takes Ho'oponopono and combines tapping.
I love it. That's what I do too.
Magic.
I'm certified in that. And it is like, people would say, because I thought so too. It's like, Ho'oponopono is free. How is it ever going to work? I paid so much money for counselors and courses and all these certificates that could, wallpaper my bedroom. And that was the one. That was the one that set me free.
Yes.
And you do your, I love you, I'm sorry.
Please forgive me.
Yeah, it was amazing. I'm like, why did someone not tell me this 20 years ago? But we're on timelines and it comes to us when it's time.
Mm-hmm.
So
was
that the beginning of your journey to start healing yourself from all this?
I think those of us that feel in that spiritual world or in that connected world can go back even further, because I remember being a little bit different in how I wanted to handle things. I felt more connected in different sources. And one thing I always hated in school was journaling. I did not want to journal, because when you have the secrecy of your journal read, you can't trust writing anything else down. And so, in school, they would give you a topic and say, oh, write about this. And I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. But what I found healing for me was to write it down, get it out of here, because you can't let it stay on replay. You have to get it out. And so for me, what worked was writing it down and then setting it on fire.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if it was that connection, back to seeing the fire as a little girl, but just knowing that it's out, I'm not carrying it, and no one can read it and use it against me later.
Yeah.
And so that really started, but just being in tune with yourself, because I think so many times it's easy to get lost in the noise of the world. Like today, I have earbuds on. How many of us put our earbuds in as soon as we wake up? We're listening to podcasts, we're listening to news, we're listening to anything and everything except ourselves.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And, Jennifer, the one thing that really popped into my mind is so many people don't believe there's ancestral trauma. You are an absolute, like a banner for, you better believe in this, because it's real.
It is real.
Four generations.
Mm-hmm.
That's incredible, and you're the one that stopped it. How wonderful that must feel.
It does, and I have this thing, and it's the name of my podcast that's rolling out, and it's called Affirm That Shit. I am big on words. Words are magic. I can make you feel good. I can make you feel loved. But if they're used wrong, you can also do the opposite. And that's not me. I want to embrace, we're only here for a little time. And to me, it's important that I impact as many people as I can, as positively as I can. And I get you on the connection that you need. And so I took that shit and turned it into an acronym. Somehow I thrived, because it doesn't matter. We've all been through it, whether you've had trauma or you've had success. Success didn't come easy. You didn't just wake up one day and become the president of a company.
Yeah.
You started and you worked. Or you didn't just wake up one day and have that degree. You got up, you went to class, you did the work. You didn't just learn to grow those plants and vegetables. You got out, you tended the soil, you planted the seed, you pulled the weeds, you watered when you didn't want to. You gave up your weekends to take care of that livestock. So we've all been through it.
I love it. And so, we're getting close to the end, and I don't want to just leave on this type of a note, or we still got some time, but I just want to go through right now, because, somebody's watching this, and we hope that if you see this and somebody who's going through trauma in their life, no matter like we can't say one trauma is worse than the other. Any trauma is too much. And what type of things can you tell somebody? What can they do? Well, let's give some type of direction for people.
First of all, you can always reach out to me. That is the world I am in today. I do coaching, both on the corporate side for leadership development, but also on the personal side for empowerment and confidence. Because many women, and I can't speak for men because I'm not a man, but for many women who have been through what I've been through, we shudder in our bodies, right? We may indulge in overeating and try to make ourselves unattractive. We may hide behind clothes and we don't do our makeup. We don't do our hair because we don't raise our hand and speak up because we don't want anybody looking at us. Stop all that. You deserve to have good hair. You deserve to wear makeup if you want to. You're beautiful without it. But girl, if you want to, pop off for your date night, do it. You deserve to wear the clothes that you are comfortable in your skin. And if that means I want to wear a shirt and show a little bit of cleavage, I have a right to do that. If I want to, wear pantyhose or not, I have a right to do that. I have a right to voice my opinion. And while I have all these rights, I also don't have the right to stomp all over everybody else. And so that's what I do, is help you find your voice, help you find your confidence, and help you find your personal power.
So important.
So absolutely. And I love that. And so anybody who's looking beneath this video, there's always a description, and there's a contact information for Jennifer so that you can reach out. And remember, these things it can happen to everyone. And the most important thing is to realize that none of this is your fault, because we tend to look at things and beat ourselves up when bad things happen to us, and we have to realize that we all have a life to live and a voice to be speaking out of, and you don't need to be ashamed of anything that's ever happened to you.
No, and I can tell you, Glenda, that is one thing I never did. I don't know if that was just my mindset from a little girl and recognizing this isn't right, but that is one coat that I never put on, was that guilt of shame.
Well, and that's so important, because I think that's a very, from what I've heard and spoke to other people, that is one of the common things that happens with a lot of people, is they put, something that they believe that they did because of this. Sometimes the person makes them feel like that they, were, bless you, that they were the one that started that situation. So, let's make that very well known to them. And yes. You do have a voice, and you do count for everything. Wow, Jennifer, I'm so impressed.
Speechless, yeah.
Totally speechless by it, but more so I'm impressed by the little girl who, it's crazy, but that you had that knowing of what was right and what was wrong for you. And, not everybody has that. So, there's sometimes in things, because I say the same thing of things throughout my life as a little girl. I don't know where things came from, but it's there, whether that higher power up there, our angels or whatever who guide us, are telling us these things. And, we have to believe that, great thing, that thank God that you had that in you, and remarkable that you had the memory of such a young age.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Goodness. Whew.
So now you are coaching people to release this from their body, because how important is this tool to release this from your body and to start moving forward?
So if you don't release that and you carry that around emotionally, that manifests physically.
Yes.
And it manifests physically as far as physical aches and pains, but it also manifests physically in the mind and not moving on, rationalizing bad behavior, allowing boundaries to be stomped all over or not even built, or retreating when you should be, pushing forward and persevering. And so working through those things. Now, I'm not a counselor, I'm not a social worker, so there's limitations to what I can do. But what I can do is be a listening ear. I can offer my Reiki services to you, which, if nothing else, is a relaxing experience. It gives you a place to be centered, to be calmed, and to have a safe space to just let go for a moment. And, that's why I chose the name I did for my practice. It's called Yukio. And it's just letting go of the bothers of life and being present in the moment.
So important.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm sorry that this had to happen to you, but I say, first of all, that thank God for your children now, that they don't have to have this trauma in their lives. And, it created you to be the person you are today. And we can't, it's life doesn't happen to us. We do have to believe that life happens for us so that we can become the victor of the powers that knocked us down, right? So not
Right.
allow our bodies or ourselves to be the victim, which only brings us further down that instead of bringing us up to where we need to be. We need to be celebrating ourselves at all times.
And I'll say, Glenda, and anybody that ever reaches out to me or speaks to me, there's no need to apologize to what happened to me. You weren't there. You couldn't have controlled that. I understand this sentiment, but I fully own my story and realize that I was the one to stop it. And so I'm thankful that it's me and it didn't go down to my daughter or my son. So no apologies are ever needed when I share my story.
Wow. You're an unbelievable woman,
Mhm.
such a young woman, and but such an old soul.
Yeah.
And I love it. And like I said, kudos to you of what you've gone through and how you've come out on the other end. It's truly spectacular, and I honor you.
Thank you. I'll take that.
I honor you. And so, now moving forward, how can we empower others? It's more than of just speaking up.
It is more than speaking up. It's listening. It's watching for signs. It's our school teachers recognizing. It's friends recognizing. But it's also encouraging little girls and little boys to come forward, be connected, and just love each other. The more you love each other, the more forgiving you are of each other, the further we can go.
And can you just tell us briefly what some of the signs would be that we would look for in children that are being abused or traumatized like this?
So I can share with you what I see in myself, and you may see that in some. But if you have a child who is very reclusive, I was very quiet in my body, and covered constantly. I didn't overshare with anybody. Look for those children who are, when I say isolated or secluded, they're not participating in the friends group, they're retreating. Sometimes those acting out behaviors that you see, that's secondary, because how does a 5-year-old know to say what's happening to them? They don't have those verbal skills yet. And so really listen with the eyes, sometimes more than with your ears.
Thank you.
Brilliant.
Thank you, Jennifer, for coming on today and this heart-wrenching story with such, thank God, a beautiful ending but such an important topic that we need to hear, and most importantly, need to start changing. I appreciate you coming on and being in exposing this for really what it is. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we never leave a show without going to our dear Nicole, who always tells us how she goes through and sums it up for us.
You know, there are so many lessons in Jennifer's story, and the strength that you show. And it might not be that for you, but others see it as just an unbelievable strength. But along with that strength, there's truth. There's speaking with your own voice, your own words, and there's encouragement that if I can do this, you can do this as well. And I think the worst thing a person can do is stay silent, because then it just lives within you. I'm actually clearing for you right now. It just stays within you and it just bubbles up. And one of the most important things you said is, you said, when you have those feelings and emotions inside of you, as within, so without, they have to come out somewhere. And generally it's with dis-ease. The disease comes out, and it can be many, many things. And for those that don't think that's true, I will tell you it is in fact true. And so for you speaking up for yourself as one, I can't even imagine the ripple effect you have as speaking up for many. So you're encouraging, you speak your truth so eloquently. And you know, we sat here just in disbelief at what you went through, you know, having your mother not recognize it and then get remarried and go right back into something else. And so for you to sit here today and be so candid with this, you are just an absolute beacon of light. Thank you so much for coming on today. Such an important topic.
Thank you.
So again, this is something extremely important. So, you know, share it with everybody that you know needs to see it. And remember, you know, what we don't know. So the most important thing is, you know, parents should all be watching for everything that their children do. Never mind just watching, listening, seeing really where their children are at, instead of closing their eyes, because that's the really important lesson of today, is really our children, you know, they show so much without those words. So let's be the ones to stop all of this moving forward and being the solution in this terrible game of trauma that was got to be stopped now. Thank you, Jennifer, so much for coming through and helping us to talk about such a hard subject.
You're welcome.